Okay, we're back. This is segment 2 of the Taxation 231, Chapter 3. We're still in income. We'll now discuss the income which are considered as earned outside the Philippines. In other words, income without. So this refers to the earnings coming from outside the Philippines or foreign countries, such as interest on bonds, notes, deposits, and the like earned abroad. Then dividends from non-resident foreign corporations. So even, even if the recipient of the dividends is a resident Filipino and it is a non-resident foreign corporation who is declaring the dividend. And then compensation for services or labor rendered by OFW or overseas foreign workers or OCW. Then we have rentals as well as royalties from copyrights, patent right to use of scientific equipment, etc., from outside the Philippines. And letter E, we have gain and sale of real and personal properties located abroad or outside the Philippines. So rule, to consider as income outside the Philippines, they are only taxable when the taxpayer is a resident Filipino citizen or a domestic corporation. Conversely stated, if this type of income is earned by a non-resident citizen or an alien or a foreign corporation, then this income is non-taxable here in the Philippines. Remember these rules. So we'll discuss the illustration for incomes which are considered outside the Philippines. Here, the taxpayer is a resident Filipino citizen. So it does not matter if she is a resident Filipino. Okay, she received 50,000 pesos dividend income from Microtech Corporation, a foreign corporation. So the 3-year gross income of Microtech before dividend declaration are the following. First year, 1 million here in the Philippines, 2 million outside. Year 2, 1 million here, 4 million outside. Year 3, 4 million here and 4 million outside for a total of 16 million. So Microtech earned a total of 16 million pesos for the 3 years before the declaration of the dividend. So question, how much would Mary's 50,000 dividend should be considered as within and as without? Now, easy to remember, if the income from within reaches 50%, then it can be considered as within half. The half of the income of the half of the dividend would be considered as within, and half would be considered as without if it reaches 50%. If it's more than 50%, then it would be prorated. No? So in this case, since 6 million earnings of Microtech in the Philippines is only, it's not more than one half or did not reach 50%, because it's only 37% right here, 37.5%. So in this case, it's less than 50%. So this 50,000 dividend income of Mary is considered as without, as an earning from without the Philippines. All of these earnings of Microtech Corporation shall be considered as an income from without. Why? Because 6 million income here in the Philippines did not reach 50% of the total income. So that's an easy problem. So regardless of the taxpayers, if the taxpayer is a resident Filipino, so this type of income is considered as from outside the Philippines. So Mary shall be taxed from this income. Okay. Then we have taxable income. This is the remainder after deducting from gross income, the expenses, losses, and other allowable deductions. So if you know your financial accounting, after getting your gross income, you deduct the expenses. No? Then if you have losses, you deduct. Then you get the taxable income. So allowable deductions nowadays is no longer permitted. No? Allowable deductions refers to a personal taxpayer or individual taxpayer, because before, individual taxpayers are allowed for personal deduction of 50,000 and additional deductions of 25,000 per child. But now it's no longer applicable. So you can forget this one, other allowable. So gross income is considered, taxable income is now computed by deducting expenses and losses from gross income. Only up to that. Only up to losses, no more allowable deductions. So this is from the old NIRC, not the train law. Okay, taxability of income. The law in levying the tax adopts the most comprehensive tax status of nationality and residence of a taxpayer. So that renders resident citizens subject to income tax liability on their income from all sources. If he is national, if his nationality is Filipino and he's a resident here in the Philippines, so he's taxed from all sources. And of generally accepted and internationally recognized income taxable base. That can be subject to non-resident aliens and foreign corporations. So non-resident aliens and foreign corporations are subjected to tax based on generally accepted and international recognized income taxable base. So as regards to individuals, the taxability of income now depends upon the citizenship, the resident of the recipient. If he's resident here in the Philippines, they can be subjected to tax, then the place where such income is derived. So if he is not a citizen in the Philippines, but he's a resident here in the Philippines, then his income is taxable. Okay. And if the place of the income is derived here in the Philippines, so it's taxable. So these are the income subject to tax under the National Internal Revenue Code. So this is still applicable and this is not affected by the train law. So first, income from all sources by every individual resident of the Philippines. So you already know that if he is an individual of the Philippines and a resident here in the Philippines, so it's all sources from within and without. Then income derived from non-resident citizen of the Philippines, an overseas contract worker or seaman from only sources within the Philippines. So those who are non-resident Filipino citizen, OCW or seamen, so they are only taxed for income within the Philippines, not without the Philippines or not outside the Philippines. So remember that an OCW earns his compensation from outside the Philippines or without the Philippines. So he is exempted from that. Number 3, income received from all sources within the Philippines by every alien individual, whether resident or not. So non-resident alien or resident alien is always taxed if his income is within the Philippines. No? but not without the Philippines. So this type of individuals, alien resident or non-resident, shall only be taxed for income received within. Okay, so we now define what is an income tax. Income tax is a tax imposed on taxable income in one taxable year. So it is based on the gross income or taxable income payable yearly by individual persons or corporations. Income tax is a tax on yearly profit arising from property, profession, trades, and offices. While income tax return is a formal statement of the taxpayer's taxable income and deductions, which are reported to the BIR by way of the prescribed form. It should be filled up and paid quarterly. But for annual, it is filed and paid every on or before April 15 of the following year. Okay, forms and valuation of income. Income may be received in form of cash, property, service, or combination of the three. How they are received as compensation from labor, exercise of profession, or conduct of business. So labor, profession, or business. So LPB. Of course, cash takes in the form of bills and coins, which are legal tender. These are issued by the BSP, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. Also considered cash are bank drafts, money orders, or treasury warrants. Okay. On the other hand, property income can take a form of property, such as real property or personal property, maybe tangible or intangible. So this denotes that there is transfer of right of ownership as a result of LPB, which is labor, profession, or business. Income could also take in a form of service. This is based on the performance received in payment for the work previously rendered by one person to another. Okay. So all forms of income are valued at its fair value at the date the income was earned, except for promissory notes, which are valued as follows. So if the promissory note is interest bearing, then it is valued at its face. No? So face value of the note, let's say I promise to pay you 10,000 pesos with interest of 10%. So it has an interest, so therefore it is based on the value 10,000 pesos. But if the promissory note is non-interest bearing, wala interest, so meaning the face value, let's say 10,000 pesos, already includes the interest. So if it included the interest already, so we have to discount it. No? So you should know or determine the discounted value of the note, because that would be the fair value of the service or the cash. Okay. So now discuss illustrations. Case number 1. M received 5,000 pesos from Tai when all services were completed. So he will receive 5,000. The amount is net of 1,000 pesos advances taken by M from Tai. So meaning net. So if the service is completed, M service is completed, then he will receive 5,000 from Tai because it's net, no? Aside from the 1,000 cash advances. So the service income of M would be the cash collected in advance of 1,000 plus the cash collected when all services will be completed of 5,000 for a total of 6,000 pesos. Okay, so very easy. Case number 2, S delivered to D his old TV or TV set as payment of D's services. The TV was bought by S 2 years ago for 10,000 pesos. If it be traded today, it has a trade-in value of 4,000 pesos. If a new TV set is acquired today, then it will reach a price of 12,000 pesos. So how much is the income of D? So here we will base it on the fair value of 4,000. So it's not TV set, it's new because it is not new anymore. So we will base it on the trade-in value of 4,000. So therefore, the income of D is 4,000. Case 3, a lawyer certified the transfer document of his carpenter. This is in payment for the services of the carpenter. So before the carpenter made his services and then he requested the lawyer, could you please certify the transfer document that I have here? Okay. So the lawyer agreed. So normally the lawyer's fee for such nature of certification is 5,000 pesos. While the carpenter charges 4,000 for his rendered services. Now, how much should the lawyer declare for his income? Okay, so the lawyer now will declare service income of 5,000 pesos. And on the other hand, the carpenter will also declare an income of 5,000 pesos because he received compensation worth or a services worth 5,000 pesos from the lawyer. So there's a gain of 1,000. Case 4, Sue issued a 5,000 pesos 1-year note, which is 12%, has an interest of 12% to Fe as payment of services. So in this case, can you compute the income of Fe? Of course, the rule says that it will be based on the face value of the note if it is an interest-bearing note. Here, if it is an interest-bearing note, so it is based on the face value of the note. So face value of the note is 5,000, so that is the service income of Fe. Very easy. Case number 5, still Sue. Sue issued 5,000 pesos 1-year non-interest note to Fe. Of course, for the services that Fe rendered to Sue. No? The prevailing interest in the market at the time is 12%. So how much should be the income of Fe? So it's right here. Service income of Fe is 4,465. So how should you compute that? So face value of the note is 5,000. We multiply by the present value of annuity of 1 peso. 1 peso at 12% is equivalent to 0.89 or 89.3%. No? And you will get the amount of 4,465. So that would be the service income of FE, because the 535 pesos is considered as interest. All right. Okay, we have now discussed the tax accounting periods. So generally, payment of taxes are made on an annual basis. However, for administrative feasibility, meaning to be easier on the implementation of the tax law, the law fixed the dates in paying taxes, allowing the following accounting period. So calendar period, this is from January to December 31 of the taxable year. There's another period, which is the fiscal period. So a fiscal period is also 12-month period, but it ends on the last day of any calendar month other than December 31. So if you're ending, if you have a business and the last day of your period is August 31, so therefore you have a fiscal period. No? So any date, as long as it's not December, the ending is not December 31. So let's say you started your business June 1 and it will end May 31 of next year. So you are observing the fiscal period accounting period, no, fiscal period. Then we have the short period. These are income for a period less than 12 months. When is this? This happens when a taxpayer dies, no? Or when a taxpayer is under jeopardy assessment. Jeopardy assessment is when there is fraudulent filing of taxes, and now the examiner is going to end the tax accounting period of the taxpayer. And number 4, we have variable period. This is depending on the nature of income earned. The period may be monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, or at specific time per sale or exchange transaction. So this also means that paying taxes on per transaction basis. No? So if you are selling properties, if you are not really selling but sell them, say you sell only for once every 5 years, so you have no income other than that, then you sell your property now, and therefore you will have variable period, because you'll file your income tax only on the following month, meaning December. Today is November, so following month is December. So all right, so let's go to methods of reporting income and expenses. So there we have a cash method, accrual method, and other special methods, and installment, sale of real property, deferred payment method, and construction, like completed contract method, percentage completion method, and so on and so forth. So cash method. So reporting of income is made only upon cash collection. Reporting of expenses only upon payment. So if a taxpayer receives cash for this month, So he makes a tax return. If he does not, then he does not declare any income, so zero in his tax return. If he has no expenses this month, he still files, but it's zero expenses. No? So that's the cash method. So if earned by rendering services, income is reported in the year of collection. So whether earned or unearned. So this method is applicable to single proprietorship, like servicing businesses, but this is not applicable to business with inventory. So if the business is in retail, Maligya, then it has inventory, so this cash method is not applicable. Also applicable for GPP and leasing renting business. So GPP still reports income but does not file any tax return. So for leasing, I have an example here. This is engaged in leasing or renting business. In the year 2020, Mr. X reported a total rent collection of 1.4 million pesos. And this is supposedly rental for the months of December and January 1, 2019. No? So he just collected the rent in 2020. So how much should X report in 2018, 2019, and 2020 based on his tax on his rent collection of 1.4 million? So how much should he report in 2018 for the 1.4 he collected? The answer is none, zero, no? Because it's cash basis, cash method. He did not receive any, so zero for 2018. For 2019, he did not receive collection also, so therefore it's none. For 2020, he collected the 1.4 million, then he will report it in the year 2020. Why? Because it's the period which he received the cash. So therefore, cash method only report income when there is cash collection, actual cash collection, whether it's unearned or whether it's earned. Accrual method. This method reports income only when earned and reports expenses when incurred. If earned from sale of goods, income is to be reported in the year of sale, irrespective if they are collected or not. No? So if, say for example, you made a sale and the sale is on credit, meaning utang pa, sale in December 2020, but you're going to collect it January in 2021. So in that case, you are going to report, when are you going to report your income? In 2020 or 2021? So the answer is on the year of the sale, so 2020. So generally, trading and manufacturing businesses use this kind of method. Bob will say trading. Trading is selling, no? Buy and sell, merchandise. Yes, then manufacturing, of course, factory. No? So here we have a sample. In selling merchandise, X reported the following collection. Cash sales for 2019, 900,000 pesos. Cash. Collection of 2018 sales on account. So meaning in 2018 there was a sale, but it's on account. So he collected only in 2019. So collected only in 2019, 300,000 pesos. So this lacks, no? This should be X reported the following collection in the year 2019. Okay. So all of these things were collected in 2019. So cash sales, again, cash sales 2019, 900,000 pesos. Then he collected 300,000 pesos for a sale which was made in 2018. Then advance collection of sales for 2020, 200,000 pesos. In addition, the sales on account in 2019 was 1,100,000 pesos. So in addition to the cash sales in 2019, there is also sales on account in 2019 of 1,100,000 pesos. So question, how much should be reported or reportable income for X of X in the year 2019? So simply, we report this one, 900,000 pesos, because the year of sales is 2019. For this one, this is sale on account in 2018. This should be reported in the year 2018. So we exclude this one. For this one, advance collection sales for 2020, we also exclude because this is for the year 2020. So exclude this one. But there is a note here. In addition, there is sales on account for in the year 2019 for 1,100,000. So we include 1,100,000 and add it to 900,000, giving us the sum of 2 million pesos. So answer is 2 million pesos. Broken down as cash sales 900,000 plus sales on account of 1,100,000. Very easy. Now we go to special methods. These are installment. Is used when collections extends over relatively long periods of time and there is strong possibility that full collection will not be made, like selling of motorcycles. No? Gross profit on sale is recognized when customers make installment payments. So during installment payments or collection, gross profit should be considered. Simply, the taxpayer may report income over the several taxable years in which collections are made. So you know how to compute your gross profit. Other term for gross profit is gross income. So gross income is derived by, oh, we already discussed that, deducting. First, you get your sales, total sales, then deduct sales return allowances, sales discounts, and then minus cost of sales. No? You get gross profit or gross income. That's for trading, but for services without inventory or profession, only deduct from sales returns, allowances, and discounts. No cost of sales. Now, when to use installment method? This is used when personal property is regularly sold on installment by a dealer. No? So as I've said, dealer of motorcycle. Motorcycles are personal properties. Also dealer of cars, no? Or dealer of appliances. Also to be used on casual sale of personal property on installment basis. So casual sale meaning not the regular business of the taxpayer. So probably he's a let's say he's a government employee, but he also sometimes sell his property, no personal property. So there are rules to follow. If the selling price exceeds 1,000 pesos, installment method can be used. Then if the initial payments do not exceed 25% of the selling price, 25% of the selling price, and the property sold is not an inventory, meaning it is a capital asset, no? Because if it is used in the business, then it's, oh yeah, this is a property used in the business. Because capital assets are properties which are not used in the business. You just remember that. So rule 1, in casual sale, the initial payment should exceed 25%, no? But in dealer, it does not apply because regularly sold on installment, there's no need to follow these rules. This is only applicable in casual sale. So 25% of the selling price, the sale is considered as cash sales, except when the seller is a dealer. See, a dealer. So if the initial payment exceeds 25%, then it is already deemed as a cash sale. But our initial payments, right, down payments, then installments during the months, that's what you call initial payments. And number 2, if the property is classified as a capital asset by the taxpayer, so not a corporation, then reportable income or loss is 100%. If the holding period is 1 year, meaning he only purchased it within a period of 1 year, then sold it, no? But if the holding period is more than 1 year, the reportable income or loss is 50%. So more than 1 year holding period, you bought it now, then the seller sold it like 2 years from now. So more than 1 year. That's what you call holding period. No? And capital asset, this is an asset which is not used in the business. Example, in 2019, ML sold a car for 800,000 pesos, which cost him 600,000 pesos, meaning he purchased this one for 600,000. The installment sale contract stated that in 2019, the payment should be 400,000 pesos. So that's the year of the sale was made. And payment should be 400,000 pesos. Then the balance equally in 2 years' time. So meaning 2020 and 2021. Okay. So what now will happen if, how do you compute reportable income if ML is a car dealer? Okay. So if he's a car dealer, we did not compute whether if the initial payments exceeded 25%. So this one is 25%, because the cost, the selling price is 800,000 and the initial payments is 400,000. So, but since he is a dealer, he can use installment method. So reportable income in 2019, being a dealer, ML will now compute the gross profit of 400,000. So what is the gross profit rate here? Gross profit rate is computed by selling price minus cost of sale. Gross profit is 200,000 pesos. No? Here, gross profit is sales, 800,000 minus 600,000, which is the cost. So therefore, the gross profit or gross income is 200,000 pesos. To get the gross profit rate, you divide it by 200,000 pesos divided by the selling price, or 200 divided by 800,000, or 2/8. No, 2/8 is equivalent to 1/4. or 25%. So income to be reported in 2019 is 25% of 400,000. Thereby, it is 100,000 pesos. No? And then in 2020, for collection of 200,000 pesos because it balances to be made equally for the years 2021, therefore 200,000 per year. So if collected 200,000 pesos and the gross profit rate of 25%, so what is 25% of 200,000 is 50,000 pesos. Same story with 2021. So all in all, total profit of ML is 200,000 pesos. That's here, 200,000 pesos. But reported in different years because it is installment. No? That's the car dealer. For casual seller, and this one is not used in business. This one is not a capital asset, but let's say it's used in business. But since the initial payment reached 25%, 400 of 800,000, it's 25%. Then reported for income in 2019 is the whole gross profit, no? 200,000 pesos. So there's no need, the installment is not applicable, okay? Why? Because it is 25% of the selling price. Or it's not clear here if it is a capital asset. Maybe if it's capital asset, then automatic 200,000 pesos. No, that's the gross profit. All right, let's go to installment sale. We're still installment sale, but this time it's real property, meaning realty, building, land. So sale of realty, if it is part of inventory, meaning the usual business of taxpayer is selling of real property. So if the initial payments do not exceed 25% of the SP or selling price, the sale is subject to normal tax of 25% for corporation. That is effective July 1 to December 31, no, of 2020. But if the sale was made January 1 to June 30 of this year, 2020, then the tax rate is 30%. If the seller is an individual taxpayer, the rate would fall, would be the graduated or progressive income tax rate starting from 5% to 32%. Now, if the sale is made by individuals of realty, a sale by individuals of realty considered as capital asset, meaning it's not part of his inventory, then the IP do not exceed 25% of the SP, then he can use installment sale. No, he cannot use installment sale because it is considered as capital asset. The sale is therefore subjected to a capital gains tax of 6% based on the selling price or zonal value, whichever is higher. So again, zonal value is provided for by the Department of Finance via the Commissioner of Internal Revenue. It's part of his powers. Okay, we have an example. Data relative to sale of realty, which is capital asset, is as follows. This is in pesos, no? Acquisition cost, or AC, is 800,000. Sold or selling price is 3.2 million. Zonal value is 3.5 million. Down payment in the year of sale is 500,000 pesos. Then unpaid mortgage assumed by the buyer is 900,000 pesos. And balance is payable equally every 2 years until fully paid. So what is meant by unpaid mortgage? So meaning the land has been loaned. Has been loaned in a financial institution or any individual for that matter. Si Kinsara, ay Prinda, no? There is a pending balance of 900,000 pesos. So the buyer agreed that he will pay the 900,000 pesos, which is the balance of the mortgage. Okay? So meaning this land or this property that's being the subject of the sale is being mortgaged, is being prinda. Napay balance, 900,000 pesos, which the buyer assumed. So the buyer will now pay. So what is the reportable income in the year of the sale? So what's the year of the sale here? Let's say it's now. No? It's capital asset. Since it is capital asset, we will now use letter B. It's considered capital asset. So we will compute capital gains tax, which is 6% based on selling price or zonal value, whichever is higher. So selling price is 3.2 million and zonal value is 3.5 million. And which one is higher? It is 3.5 million. So we now compute capital gains tax 3.5 million times 6%. So that would be the reportable income tax, no? 3.5 million times 6%. Here. Or 52,500 pesos. For what? For the contract price, no? So initial payment, we will not compute, we will not recognize the whole amount of 3.5 pesos, but we will multiply the initial payments only. Initial payments of 600,000 divided by the 2.4 million contract price. So how do you compute contract price? It's here. Now, 3 million, the 3.2 million plus the mortgage assumed by buyer, which is 900,000 minus acquisition cost of 800,000. That gives us 100,000 pesos plus, no, minus MAB or mortgage assumed by buyer. So 3.2 million plus 900 minus 800,000 is 3.3 million minus 900,000, it's 2.4 million. So it's here, 2.4 million. That's the contract price, no? Contract price. Meaning it is the there's a surprise that has to be paid yet, 2,400,000, no? Because there's already a down payment of 800,000 pesos. Or simply you get the selling price minus 800,000 equals 2.4 million. Diba? So no need for MAB or minus MAB. And initial payment is derived by adding the down payment plus the mortgage assumed by buyer minus the AC. So initial down payment is 500,000 pesos plus 900 minus 800 equals 600 pesos. pesos. No? So that's the initial payment considered. So initial payment of 600 and the total contract price of 2.4 million. That's the percentage that should be paid out of the 3.5 million zonal value. Okay. So 6% of 3.5 million times the initial payment. So in this one, it's using the installment. Okay. Why? Because it did not exceed 25%. No. The sale of individual was not did not exceed 25%. What is 25% of 3.2? 1.6 divided by 2, 800. So 800,000. So 600,000 pesos is not more than 25% of the selling price because it's 800,000. Okay. So we proceed now with deferred payment method. So deferred payment method is where the initial payments on installment sale exceed 25% of the selling price, but they may only be realized on the subsequent year, meaning the next year. The taxpayer is allowed to defer reporting of income. So here are the rules. Number one, the note evidencing the buyer's obligation shall be converted to its cash equivalent. So if it's not no interest bearing, so it should be discounted, the discounted value. Number two, income may be reported in the years of collections. Then previously reported income for the current year collections shall be made to reduce the current year's reportable income. So we deduct whatever has been reported. Example here. On December 31, 2018, Mia sold furniture costing 600,000 pesos for 1.1 million. So the cost is 600,000 and sold for 1.1 million. And here are the following payments. Cash of 300,000 plus non-interest bearing note dated December 31, 2019. So that's next year, which is 800,000 pesos. There's no interest and 800,000, meaning this already includes interest, so it should be discounted, no? For a total of 1.1 million pesos. 800 plus 300 is 1.1. The prevailing discounted value of the note with the same nature is 90%. So 90% of 800,000 pesos is 720,000. So Mia incurred delivery expenses in the sale of 20,000 pesos. So question, how much is income reported in 2018 and how much in 2019? So here's the solution. In 2019 and 2018, sorry. Cash received was 300,000 plus the discounted value of the note, or 800,000 times 90%. It's 720,000 for a total of 1,020,000. And less cost of sale, which is here, 600,000 pesos. Plus expenses of 20,000. So The total deduction is 620,000. That gives you a reportable income of 400,000 pesos. So in deferred payment, because you already declared it here, you will now use it to deduct in the next subsequent year. So there was a collection of 800,000 pesos, so you declare that. That's for the note. But you already reported that as part of your income here in 2018. So it will be used, this amount to deduct from the collection of note. So 800 minus 720,000, it gives you a reportable income of 80,000 for the year 2019. That's very easy. Okay, now we discuss income from long-term construction contracts. These are earnings from construction of building, bridge, installation, and other structures, usually covering a period of more than 1 year. These earnings are reported on the basis of percentage of completion made every year that will be evidenced by the certificates of engineers or architects. The reportable income is calculated by deducting the contract from the contract price, the actual cost of the construction. So there are two methods in this that is used by constructors. The first one is the completed contract method, or the CCM. This requires recognition of revenue only when the contract is finally completed. So there's no recognition of revenue during the time of construction, but only upon its completion. Then we have percentage of completion method, which is PCM. Requires recognition of income based on the progress of work. So example, Goldfield Construction Corporation has a contract starting January 2017 to construct a 30 million supermarket with a cost of 28 million pesos. There's a cost, the gross profit is, gross income is 2 million. So how much is the amount of gross income to be reported using the CCM or PCM? Okay. Granting that okay. Let's say, for instance, it can be completed in 3 years' time. 1 year time. So if the project is completed within 1 year, so in using the CCM or completed contract method, then the 100% completed contract method reportable income would be the 2 million. Yeah? Simply subtracting the cost of construction from the contract price. But in percentage of completion method, if the construction is not done in 1 year, but in 3 years' time, assuming, so the gross income to be recognized is computed as follows. So contract price 30 million on the first year, and the percentage of completion is certified by accountants as architects or engineers as 35%. Therefore, the value of the contract earned is 10.5 million. Let's say the cost incurred to date is 10 million. You deduct it, no? So the gross income to date is 5 million. Then you deduct the prior year's gross income, but since this is the first year, so no deduction. So annual realized income is 0.5 million pesos. So in the succeeding year, again, still contract price, then percentage completion will get higher. Let's say additional 30%, no, additional 40%. So if you add 40% here, that gives 75%. So that would be 22.5 million of the 30 million. So the cost incurred to date is already 21.5, also certified by engineers and architects. Then gross income to date is 1 million. You deduct the gross income previously made in prior year gives you 5 million, 0.5 million, and so on and so forth here in the third year. Same, but now it's 100%, and you declare only 1 million in the third year. If you notice, the total reported realized income is equivalent to 2 million pesos. 0.5 plus 0.5 million and 1 million equals 2 million pesos. No? So this is the checking point. You check how much is the annual realized income compared to the CCM. It's 2 million. Here it's still 2 million, but spread out in 3 years. So this method is also used when the contract price is definite and estimates of cost to complete or the stages of completion can be determined with reasonable certainty. This is the preferred method in taxation since the burden in paying tax is spread over the term of the contract. No? Spread man siya. And it's not so burdensome to the taxpayer. Okay. Oops. So now we go to gross income from farming. In farming, it embraces farm in the ordinary accepted sense. No? Includes stock, a dairy, poultry, fruit and truck farms, plantations, ranches, etc. However, a person cultivating or operating a farm for recreation or pleasure is not regarded as a farmer. So business engaged in farming could derive income by way of selling or raising farm products. Of course, by trading of farm products purchased, meaning selling the farm products purchased, and other farm income. So number one, income from products raised is computed by, to compute the gross income is simply, you get the harvest or the product raised at selling price, then minus the unsold at end of year selling price. So you get the gross income from products raised, no? Harvested and sold. So again, harvest or product raised at selling price, then minus unsold product raised at end of year, of course, at selling price. So that gives you gross income from products raised. Then there is the income from trading of farm products purchased. This is computed by getting the product sold, then minus the cost of sale, then that is the gain from sale. Because this is trading of farm products you previously purchased. This is previously purchased, see? So you get cost of sales by the how much you purchased it. And other farm income would be ordinary farm assets, so meaning sale of used farm equipment, implements, and work animals. Work animals, these are the animals that you used in the farming, like carabaos, so on and so forth. Then we have capital assets, the sale of assets which are not used in the farm. No? Then miscellaneous income, which consist of rent received from crop shares or proceeds of insurance on growing crops. So how is gross farming reported or reported in the BIR? No? But same, There is a reporting cash basis method. This should be reporting methods of reporting gross income in farming. So cash basis disregards the presence of inventory, meaning inventory is not yet an income. So the farmer reports income and expenses on the basis of their receipts, meaning kung madawat nila ang kwarta, and disbursements. So when they spend cash and other gross income from other sources. So it's the same type as what we have discussed already. So again, these are methods of reporting, not computing. Then there is the accrual basis reporting. This method considers inventory, unlike here, does not. Then the meaning of inventory, it is part of income of the year. The ending inventory is added as part of the gross income, while the beginning inventory is deducted to compute the gross income. No? So just like in the computation of cost of sale, the ending inventory is deducted, but the beginning deducted to find the cost of sale. And beginning inventory is added to the purchases. No? So since there's no purchases here, so you immediately add the ending inventory. This is the reverse method. No? Add the ending inventory to the gross income and deduct the beginning inventory. Another method of reporting is the crop basis. Crop basis. So this method employed by farmers whose crops shall be harvested for more than 1 year from the time of planting. So the pro forma in computing is gross income of crop realized amount, then less entire crop cost of producing crop equals income. So we will now illustrate crop basis because this one we already discussed cash basis reporting and accrual basis reporting in the other. Previously, we'll now discuss crop basis. In year 3, Kapol, who is the farmer, planted Gemellina trees. In year 7, he sold trees when they were fully grown. So here are the costs of producing the trees. Year 3, it costed him 200,000 pesos. Year 4, 100,000 pesos. Year 5, 50,000. Year 6, 30,000. And year 7, 20,000 for a total cost of 400,000 pesos. Now, if the total sales of Gemellina amounted to 2 million pesos, the gross income using the crop method would be computed as follows. Sales of 2 million minus cost of producing Gemellina woods, which is 400,000 right here. Then minus 1.6 million pesos. I know that would be that would give you 1.6 million pesos. So when is this going to be reported? In year 7. So there's no report in year 3, no report in year 4, as well as 5, 6, 7. Only in the year 7. All right. All right. That ends our topic, chapter 3. For questions, clarifications, or suggestions, you email me at my Gmail account, Masaren and masrenlaw@gmail.com, or at our MS Teams group. So I hope you learned something. And next would be gross income. So we have we have already discussed gross income here. So we will again discuss gross income in the next setting. So bye for now. So prepare for a quiz, which I will launch in the following days. Thank you and have a good day.